Well, we're back. It's the Titus and Sergio Variety Hour, and we had a bit of feedback on the various sound of the podcast. So we think we've improved some of that, but, you know, you'd be shocked to learn that Serge and I are not technological experts. But, Serge, how are you coping this week? Has it been a tough one?
It's been sort of relatively tough, probably no worse than any other week. I mean, you know, when you sit back and your main source of entertainment is watching NRL players on TikTok or Instagram, you know things are struggling a little. But it is good to be back and discuss all the big issues, you know, or even the small issues, you know.
Well, we are going to get into some of the technology problems that the NRL have had. But when I was reading a thing this morning, so consider what the NRL have been going through. This one's even better. In Spain, a well-known Spanish news anchor was doing a live cross to, so, you know, the normal sort of how they're all doing it from their homes now.
Yeah, everybody's doing that. I was about to say, yeah. So hang on, he's what, a newsreader type of guy.
Yeah, he's a Spanish news anchor, and he's quite well known. He's dating a Big Brother star is his girlfriend.
So the Spanish aren't much different to us when it comes to TV personalities.
Yeah, that's right. So he's doing this cross, and as he's doing it, a naked woman walks past in the background, which is bad enough when you're doing a live national spot. But then it says it always says this whenever anyone spots something. It says eagle-eyed viewers. Yeah. Which I don't think you have to be that eagle-eyed to notice a naked person wandering past in the background. But anyway, walks past, and the eagle-eyed viewers noticed that this was not his girlfriend.
What a way to get sprung.
I reckon that's the bit. Remember I forget which country it was. Remember we had that story of the guy who, in the post-match interview after a soccer game, thanked his wife and his girlfriend?
and then wondered why, you know, that came back to bite him, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
So this bloke in Spain, what's that? It wasn't his girlfriend in the background, so
he's been busted. It was a co-worker.
Oh yeah. Again, the TV industry there no different to ours.
So then he came out and defended it and said, actually, I'd broken up with my Big Brother famous girlfriend in advance of this. And the woman that was in the background said, yeah, you know, we've been seeing each other for a couple of weeks. And then the Big Brother ex-girlfriend now came out and said, that's just not true. We were still seeing each other.
So this virus has got a lot to answer for, hasn't it?
It just shows the perils of media. And I've got to say, like, I really think it's hard to get past what sideswiping 4 cars of stupidity during the COVID lockdown. But I feel like the NRL players are really giving it a go all of a sudden.
They're having a red-hot crack, you've got to say.
Well, we had the one where we had Latrell Mitchell and Josh Addo-Carr both caught having a big group catch-up. I think it was at Southwest Rocks up in, I think, New South Wales, and they were riding dirt bikes and shooting guns and doing all sorts of things, breaking all the things you want to do.
Yeah. Sitting around the campfire and stuff. And as you say, you know, big group catch-up. That phrase surely is not encouraged at the minute.
No, not hard to pick that was not going to go well.
Yeah.
So they've gotten all sorts of trouble, basically. But the weirdest thing is they put it all up on Instagram as well.
Oh, exactly.
You know, I'm not exactly surprised
that they got caught. I mean, or just to jump in there, that we got a couple of questions from listeners last couple of days. We got one here from Gavin Howley, and he says to you and I, I'm having a big party. Which social media platform should I document it on to prove how stupid I am? So I think Gavin's sort of on board with this sort of thing. I mean, if you're going to do the wrong thing, and I think even Dane Swan came out yesterday, and you know, when Swanee starts criticising something, you know you're onto it. But if you go and do something like this, or do anything either illegal or frowned upon, or just basically stupid, don't film it and put it online. Wouldn't that be your first rule?
Well, absolutely. I mean, this is the thing, like you kind of it's like filming your bank robbery.
I mean, this all started. If you're going to try bubbling, say, or I don't know, simulating sex with a German Shepherd, the first thing you don't do is go, I better film it.
Yeah, get your cameras out, boys.
Better keep this for posterity. This will look good at my kid's 21st,
Well, the other thing that was amazing too is not only, I mean, when you think about it, if you're an NRL player and you're fined $1,000 for breaking the COVID thing, the media is the worst bit. The $1,000 isn't going to really, especially if you're like, some of these guys are fairly well known. They're not small time players, but on top of it, they have now been hit with all these firearm offences because Latrell Mitchell's had to surrender his gun license and 3 firearms, including a shotgun. Yeah. They've all been seized. Another 3 firearms look like being caught as well. And then I think Addo Carr is facing, it's a maximum term of 5 years. I don't think he'll get that, but for charge of using an unauthorised firearm as well. And Addo Carr had been warned twice in 11 days for violating COVID-19 restrictions. This was before this. So this was his 3rd time in 11 days.
3rd offence in less than a fortnight.
Yeah.
Come on, son. It's like in the immortal words of Warren Zevon, send me lawyers, guns and money. That's what those blokes need.
It's almost like when you think he's been caught 3 times in 11 days, he must have just been out the whole time to get caught 3 times. Because you wouldn't get caught every time you'd done it. Like, sometimes you'd make it over to someone's house and no one would pick you up, So if
that's a fair assumption that he hasn't been at home for 2 weeks.
That's right. He just hasn't been at home that entire time. But you'd think after the second one, he'd say, I might pull my head in here, not let's go and film myself shooting guns. And Latrell Mitchell came out with a... and they've all received significant fines, which we might get into in a second. But Latrell Mitchell said Foxy, which is Addo Carr's nickname, reached out and had his cousins and said that his cousins were going through a bit of stuff in Sydney. So he just wanted to get away up to the bush and make sure they're getting culturally connected again. Is there anything more cultural than shooting illegal firearms and riding motorbikes?
No, I don't think so. I think that sort of ticks every box in that regard. I mean, as I say, there's nothing more cultural than guns, motorbikes, a campfire, and grog.
And putting it on Instagram.
And putting it on Instagram, yeah.
Always a proud cultural moment. Well, I think when he says, a lot of people thought he meant in his Indigenous culture, but I actually think he was referring to rugby league culture.
Yeah, well, that's right. And somebody's going with a cultural sort of revelation like that. You do think this is an Indigenous thing, and I think there's plenty of Indigenous players, whether they're rugby league or anything else. So, well, I'll tell you what, that's not really what I was thinking about.
I think most Indigenous people would roll their eyes at this just as much as anyone else because it's so ridiculous.
Exactly.
Like that's
what I'm saying.
And the thing too is like. Aside from the cultural bit that he tried to throw in there, the bit about, my cousins are going through stuff. Well, who doesn't have family members going through stuff at the moment? I mean, this is the case with all the ones that have been caught. They're all saying, it's the pressure of the lockdown. It's like, well, we're all under that. Like, it's not like you're suddenly in this different world to everyone else.
Oh, exactly. If I was forced to go into the bush with my cousins and a couple of shotguns, there'd be a couple of less people coming out going back to the city. I'm telling you now.
Then on top of that, and this is all while the NRL are sort of rapidly desperate to get back, Nathan Cleary, who plays for the Penrith Panthers, he was caught basically having a group of women over to his home and disobeying social distancing protocols. Now, there were some photos emerged. Now, from what I saw, there were photos there were two different groups of women, which suggests he's done it more than once. But so he's not the most sensible of this is once again documenting it all too. He then got interviewed by the integrity unit, NRL's integrity unit, which found, he got asked about all the things and he said what happened, that they'd just dropped in for a few minutes. They were only there for 10 minutes, all this sort of stuff. And he really hadn't been participating too much in anything and they'd left pretty quickly. It then came out that the Daily Telegraph got their hands on a bunch of deleted TikTok videos where he's actively dancing with the women, suggesting they didn't just pop in for 5 seconds and he wasn't exactly doing nothing.
No, exactly. Well, we got a question from Mark Haywood, and he said, and this is directed to you and I, he says, when you're trying to isolate responsibly at the Variety Hour office, have 6 girls in their mid-20s ever arrived on the doorstep unannounced and refused to leave?
Well, that obviously with the Variety Hour is a daily occurrence.
I mean, it's funny you should ask that, Mark, because the new Titus O'Reilly TikTok video is about to be uploaded very shortly.
Well, this is the thing. I can't wait for TikTok videos to be over. I mean, get these people. It's just teaching me that all they're actually good at is football, nothing else. So he basically lied. He said that the reason he didn't tell the integrity unit about the videos is they didn't ask.
Oh, it's fantastic. And just on TikTok videos, I think you may have suggested this last week too, that it is high time for AFL coaches to please stop doing them. Just don't do it, Oh,
it's doing my head in. I mean,
yeah, I know.
Checker Hughes would be rolling in his grave. Can you imagine? Imagine Dennis Pagan being asked to do this while he was a coach.
Dennis Pagan.
So good.
No.
So anyway, it looks like Cleary looks like he's not going to get fined because technically he didn't break COVID because he was at his house. I don't know. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, unless I think he's arguing he didn't invite them over and therefore, but like you cannot open. But you and I, we'd have 20-year-old women knocking on our doors every day and we say no. That's, just something we do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I get sick of it, quite frankly.
You find it incredibly boring, I know that, and you've increased your front gates now like Fort Knox. Unbelievable.
Well, the last time a 20-year-old woman knocked on my front door, she handed me a pamphlet about the Jehovah's Witnesses. There's certainly plenty of social distancing going on there. That's that.
Now, we should add, with all this stuff, they got the fines that came in.
Yeah.
Latrell Mitchell and Josh Adokar, who went on the camping trip, they got fined a lot more because it was seen as premeditated and organised. So they got a $50,000 fine, with most of it suspended. So they're only costing them $20,000 each, but compared to $50,000. And Cleary got a $10,000 fine, but only $4,000 of it he has to pay. The rest is suspended.
Right.
So a bit of a difference. Those suspensions are always nice.
Yeah, I'm never quite convinced about the suspended parts of these fines. I mean, just go with what the fine is, I reckon. Well, you add a bit more on top. I guess it's a deterrent for them not to do it again because they know what's coming. But,
It is funny because a lot of people forget, but one of the reasons the Carlton salary cap cheating fines were so big back in the day were they had a bunch of suspended sentences hanging over their heads.
Ah, right.
So
they got hit pretty hard financially, didn't they?
Yeah, and a lot of people forget that part of that was their own fault because they'd been caught several times before and had suspended and still did it. It's just kind of amazing.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of AFL players caught having a bit of a party early. Was it Freo?
Yeah, Liam Ryan and a couple of I think he was the most well-known player of the three, and a couple of younger guys. And they were caught, I guess socialising, getting together, having a couple of beers. But they seem to have got away scot-free. I think.
I think it was like they went a few hours early. Like at midnight in WA, you're allowed to suddenly have up to 7 people over, or 10 people, I think it is. Sorry, and they started at sort of 9 o'clock on Saturday night, and at midnight it was fine. So I think it was sort of decided,
And it didn't involve guns or young women,
Well, I'm not sure if it had young women there or not, but to my knowledge, there were no guns. But I mean, it is that thing of just stay away from documenting when you're breaking rules. I mean, of course, don't break the rules would be my first suggestion.
But seriously, the filming of it. I mean, not only filming of it, so many of these they then edit them and then post them, and then they put little supers on top of them or some sparkles or what have you. A lot of thought goes into the documenting of these things.
Are you massively into the Instagram filters?
No idea how they
I would follow an Instagram which was just you posting pictures of yourself with all those filters. That would actually be I would actually follow. That would be good content.
Maybe I'll just be standing inside the house, with all those leaves floating down across the top of me. Autumn. Autumn at the right hour.
Yeah, and some and like the dog nose one and all those. I could really see you doing that. Do you think we're going to actually see any football of any code played this year?
Well, a few days ago or a week ago, I would have said yes for sure. When, we don't know. But I'm starting to think maybe nothing will happen. And somebody pointed out the other day that if we were to let's just talk AFL for a moment. Yeah. If we were to wipe this season completely, apart from the financial disaster that would be for the AFL and all the clubs, how big would season 2021 be? The build-up to that, it will be bigger than ever. Now, I'm not suggesting that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm starting to think that may be what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I was very, I thought we could get something done. I mean, I think the funny thing is it keeps being reported not by everyone. I know there's a simplicity to this, but it keeps being discussed more than reported. Like the NRL and the AFL have some level of control over this.
Yeah.
When really they have very little. The governments are going to decide what can actually happen. And I think there's a cabinet meeting today, national cabinet meeting today, that will decide more of this than the AFL and the NRL can really decide.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I also think even the governments don't have all the control that they would like to think they have, because this disease, it doesn't need many cases to spring back up again. It got to where it got off one case. So when it first started, it doesn't need to have tens of thousands of cases out there for it to suddenly reignite.
Well, that's right. In all the governments, whether it's federal government or the various state governments, it's sort of none of them want to be the politician that pulled the lever to go back too soon and it blow up again, because that will destroy them politically in the long term, which, as we know, politicians are like that, probably more important to them than the general health risk to the populace.
Well, I even think what's happening in Victoria, which has huge impacts for the AFL, because obviously so many of the teams and players and media are based here, is I think, you've seen WA and you change the rules so you can have 10 people over, I think it is.
10 people, yeah.
In New South Wales today, I think from today you can have 2 people come visit you in your house. And I just reckon the Victorian government are looking at this and going, let's just see how these other guys go.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're just hanging on, saying, look, well, if we're sure, okay, we might pull a lever, but nobody's sure about anything at the moment. So everything's a bit of a punt.
Yeah, no, I mean, you look at, Victoria yesterday had 7 cases that were in a nursing home. So you can suddenly have these jumps where it can suddenly spread. And if you really suddenly let everyone go and start doing things that, it could really rip through a whole community very quickly.
Yeah, it could blow up again. And nobody wants to do that. So,
yeah, that's what this disease works like. So I think the Victoria are going to sit back and say, well, we're not going to risk we're going to keep banking our gains, and at some point, if New South Wales and WA etc. don't see a big uptick from letting 2 people go to each other's houses, then we might do it. But if it goes badly, we haven't sort of had to spend that political capital to do it. So I think that's going to happen. I also think there's just so much, there's been a big fight between the AFL players and the
players,
and Eddie Maguire's come out and slammed the Players Association, and
now Paul Marsh has come back and flung it at him, and it's all getting a bit messy.
Yeah, I don't feel like Eddie's the best representative of the AFL's.
Well, you don't think he should be the official spokesman?
Well, I don't think he is. I think he's made himself the official spokesman of their, coronavirus, council. They've set up the AFL, but he came out and whacked the AFLPA, saying the 20-week hub plan is the worst case scenario. When the AFLPA, I think, have come back and said, well, that was the only scenario put to us, so we can only react to the. I kind of there's this thing of people are saying, well, aren't these players being a bit precious, saying, you might have to be away from your family for 20 weeks.
Yeah.
But then I kind of think as well, when you become an AFL player, you don't get a chance at an international career. You don't get the potential money you could make if you were in the NBA or the NFL or even rugby union and various sports.
Or the APL or something.
Yeah, it's not as international. The money's not there. But one of the big benefits is you can kind of live at home. You can live in, I mean, you might have to move to Perth or something, but you are around family. You are, it's not the travel of the extent of those sports. Not that all the AFL players can necessarily go into those sports, but when they sign these contracts, that's what they were signing up for.
Yeah.
So I kind of understand that.
Yeah, and you can see how every year there's a thing of players wanting to be traded back to their home state because they're away from their families.
And I think, but I think the real thing is, I think being away from their families, I mean, I'm sure that affects some players more than others, because some would not have families, so not care one way or the other. And then I've heard some people who have families say they don't mind, they just want to earn money and get back to it. But the thing about it all is it's an enormous, they're trying to be told to say yes to something that there's not a lot of evidence around it's going to work or how it will work or how long it will go for, or, so I can understand why they're a bit reluctant to say yes to it. I mean, they don't even know where they're going to be put up, like what cities and everything too. And then if the borders remain, I mean, this is the other bit before we even, I guess, they say yes or no to this, is I don't know if there's going to be enough time. Like what's today? It's May 1st.
Start of May, yeah.
So you think nothing's going to happen I know the NRL have the 28th of May down, but realistically, like June's your best case scenario.
Oh, at the very earliest, because not only would they have to sort through, as you say, opening borders and the places to create these so-called hubs, but then they have to organise accommodation and transport for all hundreds of people, and as I say, accommodation and plans for training and all this sort of stuff. Well, it's just hard to imagine it being able to be pulled off.
Well, and that's the other thing too. Like, you only need one state to hold out and say, like WA, say, well, we're not opening our border.
Yeah.
Well, that counts out 2 of your major teams.
Yeah.
So what do you do then? And same with the NRL and say Queensland or something. There's certain things, and it said this in the NRL's submission to the government on bringing the competition back. one of the opening paragraphs from their health expert actually said, the activity of rugby league, and it's the same with any contact sport like AFL too, if one of the players has it, the odds of lots of the players on the field getting it is very high. It's
absolutely.
We've seen if people all go to the same dinner party, you walk away with, out of a dinner party of 10 people, you walk away with sometimes 4 or 5 people get it out of that group. So, they all say, now they're saying things like both competitions, if one player got it, we'd just isolate them and do testing around it and all that. But you're like, well, I don't think you're going to be able to just keep it to one person. So the idea that you start this all up and then it's gone in a week or two anyway, I don't know if that's going to work anyway. Yeah. So I look at it and think, I could see restrictions properly starting to be eased, and and I know there's differences across the states, but contact sport generally, bars, and sport with crowds, they're going to be sort of the last ones that come off that I think will come off that will be brought back online. Like, I think they'll be the last ones, not the first ones. So, you could be looking sort of July, August for this getting back. And realistically, how are you going to run a full proper season in that time? Like, you'd even argue now it's just let's say they are back June 1.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a weird season, isn't it?
Oh, of course it is, especially, one of the scenarios put forward by the AFL, and to be fair, they haven't probably even put this forward in an official capacity, but they're suggesting maybe they could have the grand final on Cox Plate Day, which is late October, and you think, oh well, and what's the lead up to that? It just, the whole thing just seems to me incredibly difficult, logistically and practically, as well as financially.
Yeah,
and you wonder, under what circumstance Channel 7 and Foxtel are going to be prepared to hand over their broadcast rights money if what they're getting back is sort of not what anyone planned. I mean, having said that, from a spectator's point of view and a footy fan's point of view, I'd love to see 20 games in 22 days. It'll be, give us something to watch again.
Well, I've got a thought where, and look, it all depends on. Look, I say two things. One, there's no one that wants footy back more than me. So if we can get footy in, I'm all for it, right? I'm not trying.
Yeah, for sure.
And I also think, I'm very cognizant of the fact, not just for everyone out there, you and me and every person out there listening. Any way we can get people back into jobs without having bad health outcomes, I'm all for, because, we're all sitting here going, either not earning or... So I get the pain the footy industry's in, and they're no different from any other industry, like some people are better off than others, but, So I'm all for it, but I'm kind of like, at what point do you go, it's just getting silly, it's going to be ridiculous? I think at what point do you say, we're not going to have a proper season, like we've got 3 months or something to work with? And I'm kind of the view, should we be doing something then different, like having a real proper state of origin tournament over 3 months? Or, where you've got all these players that are on, and using that money to actually, the money earned gets distributed across the AFL or whatever, because, I know individual teams, but if you don't have the proper time to run a proper season, or do you have an FA Cup style tournament instead?
Yeah. Or a reduced knockout tournament or something, just to give people something to see. The problem is if they want to get decent money back from the broadcasters, they're going to need, more than just a handful of games, or else it'll probably be, more expensive than it's worth.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Or AFLX, bring back AFLX for a couple of weeks.
Do you think this is punishment for the AFL cancelling AFLX?
I think it's punishment for the AFL introducing AFLX.
It's very sad. We should move on to this falls into, for me, this falls into the curse of, or the scourge of TikTok videos we've been subjected to, and also David Warner and Candace Warner swapping.
Oh, yeah.
Swapping their sports uniforms. So we got an eyeful of David Warner wearing Candace's former Iron Woman outfit.
Yeah, Dave Warner should not dabble in comedy.
How's he should be fined for that. I mean, that actually has been the most traumatic moment for me in this whole COVID-19 thing. But in falling into that category, is St Kilda players have been told to write love letters to one another as the club works on building a closer bond. Now, they're not necessarily love letters, but they're penning letters to each other about what they admire about each other and things like that.
And how long will it be until one of these love letters gets leaked and it'll be a bit more in it than the club is expecting?
In a negative or a positive sense?
No, in a positive sense. Yeah,
like a bit more emotional or something, or
a bit more emotional, maybe a bit more physical, maybe.
Really, this is where you think it's going.
The first step of an AFL player coming out.
Oh, you think this is how it happens, do you?
I'm just hoping. I just know that
I want to be with you. I love you. I want to spoon with you.
I've always admired you. You know. Now's the opportunity to take things to the next level, perhaps. You know.
I think you're projecting a lot onto this, Serge.
I was also thinking, how do you reckon this suggestion would have gone at St Kilda? Imagine having to write a love letter to Barry Hall.
or receiving one from Barry Hall.
Maybe that was Brent Staker's problem.
He wrote him one just before the match. I don't get it. I mean, you know how the world changes, and I always think about, how the world changes and you end up with a different, the worldview you grew up with changes, and suddenly, and you see this in each generation. So people have either, racist views that are now seen as out of date, or they have views of masculinity and femininity that are now out of date, and the younger generation roll their eyes and all this sort of stuff. I'm on that cusp where I'm young enough to get where it's all moved and be supportive of a lot of it, but I'm also old enough that I grew up in an age where the idea of blokes writing, or footballers especially, writing love letters to each other, or even just one saying how great they are, it's sort of still, I have this instinctive reaction of going, this is the worst. When really, maybe I shouldn't have that reaction, but I kind of imagine, how would your grandfather have reacted to this?
Oh, exactly. And you wonder who at St Kilda threw this idea into the mix. You wonder. Look, if it works for them, good luck. If it works for them, the next thing out, the other clubs will be getting their players to be writing Milton Boone novels in their spare time. Ripping bodice novels.
See, my other reaction.
Club colours.
My other reaction. It's fan fiction. My other problem I have is I just hate group exercises. Whenever I've been in any workplace and they do, let's all do a group exercise or something like this.
These team bonding.
Concocted. It's the fact that they're so concocted. Let's concoct a way to make you all feel like you've got a bond, rather than you actually all do work together, and that's what actually generates the bond. It's well, no, let's try and speed that up by inventing some situations to make it. And I always hated those corporate off-site dates where you'd have these things, because the person that was the best at the group exercise was always the worst person to work with in real life.
Yeah, that's true.
I
remember, I remember years ago working at a place, and we did one of those team bonding things at those indoor go-kart tracks.
I thought you were going to say goat.
The indoor go-kart track. I remember sitting in my go-kart on like it's waiting for the flag to drop. And I look over, and the cart next to me, there's the CEO of the entire company.
Yeah.
And he looks at me, and he leans over and he goes, "I'm going to run you into that wall, you effing see." And I thought, "Gee, this is going well. This is going to be good at the meeting on Monday."
What a wonderful team building exercise. And did he run you into the wall?
Well, he tried, but I'll tell you, when that flag dropped, I was straight out of the grid as quick as I could. But you're right; those team bonding things are always, fraught with danger, and this love letter thing sort of smacks of that. There's no doubt.
I just
But
think
hey,
it's
if
ridiculous.
it works, good luck.
Because
good
what
luck,
if they
Tom.
say, "Hey, write something about what you admire about this person," and you don't admire them?
Yeah,
What do
nothing.
you want me to just make stuff in? Mention that nothing. I don't mind nothing about you. Now this story came out this week.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson revealed that he was dating back in the day Robin Givens, who he had a very let's just say interesting relationship with. I would have to say
turbulent kind of relationship, wasn't it?
Well, I think there was a bit of acts of violence. She was scared of him. At the same time, he accused her of telling him she was pregnant. He put all this money into her, like millions of dollars, like into her bank accounts, though, and all that. And then she suddenly said she'd miscarried, and he didn't actually believe her and all this. So I don't know who's right and who's telling the truth and all of that. It goes all over the shop. But then he tells the story of, I think at this point he'd broken up with her, or it was because it was constantly off and on. And he said he walked in on her and she was having sex with Brad Pitt, which is that's got to be
Brad Pitt, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, do you think you'd be not annoyed? You go, I guess it was Brad Pitt. I can't expect you to say no to Brad. But he said that Brad Pitt suddenly saw him and he said you had to see the look on his face. He looked like he was ready to receive his last rites, which I've got to say, he probably did have that view because that's probably what was about to happen. That would be what you would think would happen, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you're Brad Pitt, you're thinking, I don't want to get sprung here. And then if Mike Tyson walks in and you're in bed with his wife or his girlfriend, you naturally think the worst is going to happen.
Well, apparently Pitt said, "Dude, don't strike me."
And you think, gee, I wish he had have, in retrospect. But then on the other thing, you think, maybe Mike Tyson had already agreed with Robin Givens that Brad Pitt was a hall pass,
You should never have a hall pass as someone you know. You both know. Always a bad outcome, I reckon.
Yeah, I found that out the hard way. But,
I got to say, you would be, imagine that of all the people that could walk in, that was the person.
That'd be the last one you'd want to see.
But lucky Brad, you don't want Brad earns his money from his face. It'd be like slashing the Mona Lisa. Now, Nick Kyrgios, dear friend of the show, he apparently turned 25 a couple of days ago.
Yep.
I know, can you believe he's 25 already? That career is just slipping through his fingers, isn't it?
I'll tell you, another couple of years, it'll be just about over for him. But 25, I mean, good luck to him. Happy birthday. But he was a pretty sort of up and down sort of day for him, you'd have to say.
Yeah, what happened?
Well, Stefanos Tsitsipas, sort of the Greek god kind of tennis player,
up and comer,
like very handy player himself, and he's got a touch of the Brad Pitts about him too. You've got to say, but he decided that what he was going to do was to try and do a bit of a tribute to Nick Kyrgios' birthday and try and boost everyone's spirits. So he held up a sign, took a photo of it, and on the sign was a mobile phone number. And nobody quite knew what it was. And then they realised as soon as they called it, that it was actually Nick Kyrgios's mobile number. So Kyrgios actually came out and I think had to post on Instagram through his iPad or his laptop or something that please stop calling this number. He'd had 50,000 missed calls in 24 hours.
Jeez. Which is like your phone number on a normal day.
Yeah, exactly. And they're missed calls because I just refuse to take calls from creditors, you know. But, you know, so poor old Nick wasn't too happy about it. And on his post, he said, you know, Tsitsipas, you are an absolute idiot. Everyone stop calling me. So now he's got a new phone number. So I think we should do this once a week. It's just out a celebrity phone number and see what happens.
Well, I did think that you and I could give out our phone numbers, but I then had the crushing realisation, unlike Nick Kyrgios, imagine he publicly gave your phone number out and it didn't ring.
And nobody called.
Nobody called. It would be the worst. Like, imagine the crushing hit to your ego.
Yeah. And if you did get any calls, all you would get was abusive
yeah, that's
messages.
right.
Yeah.
So it's not something I plan on doing.
No, I don't think so. But happy birthday to Nick Kyrgios, as you say, a great friend of the show.
Oh, yes, you know, and got amazing all those Grand Slams he's won by 25. You forget that, don't you, how young he is?
Yeah, you do forget that.
He's achieved so much.
He's done reasonably well, and good luck to him in the future. I mean, he has been turning around his image a bit the last 6 months or so.
Oh, but, yeah. But you know what? It's like if you set the bar low enough.
Yeah.
He's just said a few nice things about a few issues.
Yeah.
And everyone's suddenly like, oh, he's totally changed. He's amazing. And I'm like, he's fine.
As soon as he gets back on a tennis court, that'll be gone, long gone, dead and buried.
Yeah, but it's like he's just been slightly less worse.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, good on him. He said some good things about the bushfires. He's done a few good things, you know, and all that sort of stuff. But, like, you know, he's coming from a long way back, is my point.
Very
and that's
true.
And I'd ring and tell him if he hadn't changed his mobile number.
Hey, before we wind this one up, we got a good question from our old mate, Audible Senity, sort of about the general effect of this whole lockdown.
Yeah.
He asked us, how much of a downturn has the AFL suffered on the community yoga sessions at Marvel Stadium?
Oh, that's true. Because that was one thing. When they bought it, that was the one thing they said they were going to put in place to help reinvigorate the stadium.
The whole area is the community yoga.
And I don't think they've done that, have they?
No, I don't think they ever introduced it. And now, of course, the AFL suggesting that probably they were about to, but now because of the lockdown laws, they can't do it, social distancing and what have you. But that'll be one of the first things I hope they do introduce or reintroduce after this whole thing's over.
Well, I think community yoga sessions are the solution to everything. I mean, I do love that sort of like the lockdown thing is meditation, yoga, baking banana bread and sourdough. And I kind of look at it and go, I've done none of these things.
And bourbon.
That's your alternate one. Make your own bourbon.
Yeah, although community yoga's got a touch of the team building sessions as far as I'm concerned too.
Oh well,
but anyway,
straight after we finish here, I'm writing a love letter to you.
Okay, and I'll leak it to St Kilda Footy Club and we'll move on. All right.
Well, on that note, I've got to let some people in because we're just about to have a party and put it up on Instagram.
Okay. Let me know if there are a bunch of girls in their mid-20s. I'll jump in the car and I'll be right over.
Don't forget you'll be over on your motorbike bringing your shotguns.
And some homemade bourbon.
Oh, sounds good. All right, everyone. We'll see you next week.
We will.